One of the biggest marketing struggles I hear when I talk to small business owning women is the struggle to find quality, emphasis on the quality, photos and videos to use in their business's marketing. So whether it's a video to go behind some text on your website homepage or relevant images to use throughout the slides for your course, or on-brand images to use on Pinterest graphics. If you're like me, you need images and videos in every nook of your business, and you're probably not doing a photo shoot for every specific photo you need. Also, the free stock image sites likely don't cut it, at least not forever. Those images are often, let's be real, they often feel kind of cheesy. They can often be overused, and they might not actually match your brand. So enter my favorite paid stock photo company, Hotstock. Guys, I have been a subscriber to Hotstock since early 2020, so around 3 years now. You've likely seen me use their images and videos fit seamlessly into my brand on things like my course videos, marketing graphics for this podcast, and even just throughout my website. My team and I are in and out of our Hotstock account just about daily for different content creation purposes. I seriously love them so much. As a Hotstock member, you can quickly download photos, videos, and even marketing templates to use in your business. They have over 8,000 images and videos to choose from, and they're constantly adding more to their library. And I really love that I can use their search function to type in exactly what I need and find it quickly. So you can search for things based on the colors used in the images or videos. So you're I need something with some blue, you can search for that. You can search based on if there are people in the image or not, technology in it or not, and a bunch of other cool search features there. It's pretty amazing. As a Breakthrough Brand podcast listener, Hotstock has hooked you up with a deal to get 15% off your subscription. So use the referral code Elizabeth at checkout to save 15%, or you can visit the link elizabethmccravey.com/Hotstock to get that deal as well. And that is spelled Haute stock. So spelled like haute couture, but pronounced hot. So Haute stock. And I'm also linked to that for you in the show notes if you want to just click that there. So go check them out, get that 15% off with the code Elizabeth, and let me know what you think and let me know what images you love. Seriously, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a DM. My current favorite collection is the Mama and Me collection. I've actually used a lot of those images for promoting my podcast episodes around working mom life, and they fit in absolutely perfectly into my brand. So check out the beautiful photos, the strategic videos, and start downloading the ones that fit your style and get ready to up-level your marketing and business today. Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Breakthrough Brand podcast. I am so thrilled that you've clicked play in this episode because I think you're going to seriously love this conversation. So today I'm chatting with fellow educator and podcaster Laylee Emadi. She's the host of the So Here's the Thing podcast, and she's the founder of the Creative Educator Academy. I personally really enjoy Laylee's show, and I was actually a guest a few months ago on episode 108 of her podcast, which I'll link to that in the show notes. We talk all about diversifying your income streams as a business owner, so really fun conversation. But she's a sweet friend and business owner, and this interview is just so insightful. So if you're someone who's ever wanted to get into education as a business owner, whether that's education in the sense of I'd love to be interviewed on podcasts, or I'd love to speak at an event for my industry, or be able to create content that's like teaching people, all the way to like you're wanting to make online courses, teaching something wherever you fall into that, we cover stuff and getting started for like a wide range of those things. So we talk about things like being multi-passionate as a business owner, which is something Laylee and I both have experience with. We talk about how to pitch yourself to speak at conferences, which is just super insightful. I had a lot of questions for her around that topic. We talk about how to get started as an educator, do's and don'ts of online courses, and stay until the very end because we talk about how to create white space in your business and like room to think and grow. And what Laylee shares about that and her own experience there is really, really beautiful. And I think will be good encouragement for many of you guys listening. Additionally, though, before I play the interview, I want to add, we talked briefly, kind of at the end and maybe at another point too, about Laylee's new conference, the Creative Educator Conference. I want to tell you a little bit about it. So it's January 17th through 18th in Dallas, Texas. It's the first conference of its kind. It's an event with a lot of like hands-on learning for course creators, event hosts, podcasters, speakers, and people who want to do those things, want to add those things into their business, like I'm saying. And it's funny, when we recorded this, I was not a speaker at the event. But now, since then, Laylee's asked me to be a speaker, and I was so thrilled to say yes. So how fun is that? So when you hear us talk about that, know that I will be at the event, and I would be absolutely thrilled to meet you there and to work with you on adding education to your business. So I'm going to put links to information about the conference in the show notes. You can also go to creativeeducatorconference.com to get info there. And again, putting in the show notes though. But that's it for now. Here's my wonderful conversation with Laylee. Again, I hope you enjoy. I hope it inspires you and that it gets you excited about the idea of creating educational content for your business. Hello, Breakthrough Brand Podcast listeners. This feels funny to intro this way. Me and Laylee have just been sitting here talking, and I'm interviewing the lovely Laylee Emadi today, and I'm so excited to talk about how to get paid to teach what you know. That's our topic, and we've just been sitting here catching up over Zoom. So welcome, Laylee.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. Okay. So like before we get in, I know like y'all, she has so much great stuff she's going to share because we were just talking through even like about if you're thinking like you want to speak at conferences, how to get started as like an educator, all that, so much good stuff to add here. But before we dive into all that, those listening who don't know you, can you share who you are, what you do, and who you serve in your business?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Laylee. I'm very excited to be here. And I am an educator for creative educators, which sounds and is so meta. Yeah. But I'm also a photographer. That's where I got my start in the creative industry. Before that, and during some of that, I was a high school teacher, which is why I now serve creative educators, because very full circle, long story. I can get into it if we want to, but essentially, I just love teaching and I love helping people get paid and build a life that they love, doing something that they know so well. And I love being able to help them communicate that to others in their industry, because I have this this thing that has become like my catchphrase, but I really do believe it. Like I always say, I think that industries really thrive when experts can share their knowledge and share it well. Yeah. And so that's what I do. I help people share their knowledge and share it well and also get paid doing it. So that's my jam right now.
Yeah, you're right. It's so needed, like you just said, and cool that you have the education background to like back up the teaching. Okay, with that, so you're so multi-passionate, which I can relate to as well. But do you still do photography right now? Like how has that been kind of shifting even from that to more of like education?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, since like 2019, I have gone like in and out of like, I'm going to just put my camera away. Like I'm done. I retired from shooting weddings in 2019, which was really well timed, by the way. Like I did not plan to get away with not being involved in events during like a pandemic, but it worked out. So I retired from weddings, but I still did portraits and I still do portraits today. It just looks a lot different. So I'll do maybe one brand session a month on average. Sometimes I take on more, sometimes I don't take on any. And it just kind of depends on like what my launch schedule is and what my education schedule is with my courses, with my in-person events. Like how busy I am helping other entrepreneurs versus how much free time I have to be the service-based photographer that I want to be. But I love it. And it's like a really fun creative outlet for me. So I don't think I'll ever completely stop shooting, you know?
Yeah. And that's good. And it keeps you fresh on like doing the craft versus just being an educator of people doing the craft.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that, how do you feel like as someone who does have very different offers? Because I can realize it's very different audiences, even especially since you do senior photography too, still, right? Some of that or no?
Yeah, sometimes
Okay.
seniors, dancers, and brands, but
Yeah. So that's so different though than like your courses and stuff. How do you feel like you talk to all the people?
yeah, it's so hard. I feel like you really I hate to say this because I used to say, and a lot of people who already know me are gonna be like, hey, that's not what she told me. I used to be like, it's okay, just talk to all of them. Like people will find what they need and they'll suss it out. Now I say, like, you can't talk to everybody at once. It's kind of the same thing I say about like you can do whatever you want, you just can't do it all at once. So like for me, it's easy to incorporate talking to brand clients while I'm talking to education clients because they're all usually in the creative industry. They're all small business owners. They're usually like makers and creators and service-based business owners. Seniors and dancers, like they have their own little Instagram account. They tell their friends about me. It's a very like I set it up, you know, about 9 years ago when I started that business. And so that kind of takes care of itself, but I still share it sometimes when I want to. It's hard because you really have to, I think, prioritize like where do you want your audience to find you and what do you want them to see when they do find you?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. That's helpful that the brand audience is an overlap. But yeah, it is a lot having, I was on your website right before this, and it really is like you have a lot of different services. But even on there, I feel like you do a really great job of like showing them all off in a way where you can find out what you need, which is so important when you have so many offers. So I love that.
Thank you. Honestly, all credit to my designer.
She
Talked to me out. She's a very great designer, but she's like, okay, just, we got to limit your stuff. Like, let's make it because I have so much that I do and that I love to do. But so that's why you won't really, you have to dig around to find the photography because it's not like front and center anymore.
Yeah. And that's helpful though. It's like you can still book it, but it's not like your front thing. Okay. So let's talk about education though. So like for people listening, which I know there's a lot of people listening who are in this boat, like maybe they've been service providers for a while and they are like, hey, I'm good at this and I want to teach it because that's different, right? You can be really good at something you're doing and have no desire to teach it or feel as though it's so natural to you that you cannot even teach it anyway. But let's say someone listening is like, I'm good at this. I figured something out. I want to teach on it. What would you say to them? I guess is my first question. Like, how does someone get started in that? What's the thought process and steps there?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing that I would say to ask yourself is why do you want to teach the thing that you're so good at? Like what angle are you coming at it from? And there's no right or wrong answer. I think oftentimes people think that that means, or that I'm implying that the answer can't be because you want to add another revenue stream to your business. Like they think, oh, I just really want to I have to want to quote unquote give back. And I do think that's important, but I more so ask that question out of the approach of like, what is the outcome that you're looking for? Because that's going to help determine how you approach the type of education, the type of teaching that you want to pursue. Whereas I say back in the day, back when I started offering education, I would hear educators be like, well, if you don't have the heart to just give it all away for free, then you shouldn't be teaching it. And I don't believe in that. I'm like, we all need to make a living. So it's okay. Whatever your answer is, it's fine. But I think it's important to approach it from the self-aware standpoint of, okay, I need to add an additional revenue stream into my business. And that's going to help me determine how does this stuff that I'm doing so well, how do I want to teach that to other people? In what format do I want to do that? What's the time and the bandwidth that I have to be able to create and sell something? There are so many questions that go into it. But a good starting point, I think, is the whole concept of why do I want to do it? And then leaning into what exactly do I want to teach in terms of the topic and what format is best suited for that education.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, like what topic, what format. And with that, like, so when someone has decided they want to do this, what advice do you have on making the time to create it when you are also like, it's not a revenue stream yet, right? Because you haven't made it yet. How do you usually help people through that of like how to make it while working on other stuff?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. But honestly, there's a couple of things. The number one thing that I usually advise people to do is once they know what they want to teach. So like, let's say you want to create a course, or let's say you want to pursue speaking, you're going to have to scale back for at least like a certain amount of time on the other things that you're doing if you're already working full time. Like, and that again depends on where you are in your business. So for example, for me, I have a lot of white space on my calendar, and I have for the past year or so, just because that's kind of what I wanted to set my business up as. I want to be able to pursue new projects without having to completely change my life around it. However, 6 years ago when I was creating like my first educational offering, I had no white space in my calendar. I was fully booked. I was shooting. I was doing a lot of different types of photography. I was mentoring. I was freelancing I was freelancing as a choreographer at the time. And so I was working that job. Like I had so much going. I had no free time. So what that meant for me was I had to make a decision of, am I willing to create this white space so that I can build a new offer and take that financial hit temporarily as I'm building in a new revenue stream that will hopefully make up for that. So that's what I did. And that's what I advise people do if they can. Now, if they can't, that's fine. You find those pockets of time and just like, it might take a little bit longer. But I guess I'm at the place now where I tell my students, and I tell myself this all the time, if things take a little bit longer, what's the downside to that? If we're supposed to be having our businesses for the long haul,
Yeah.
what's another few months because you're only working like during the gap times,
Yeah, that's a good perspective of like not rushing things, possibly making a way better product because you took the time to do it. Yeah, and I can relate to that. Like with my business, when I moved from just one-on-one work to selling templates, it was like I had to scale back in the one-on-one work to make time to create the templates. But also ended up, for me, what happened was I had two clients delay their projects, and it was like they were still booked with me, but they were like, hey, we actually need longer, which as designers listening know this, it really, you hate it when that happens. You're like, no, I hate this. But I was actually kind of like, okay, well, this is my sign that like I'm going to focus in on templates more. And I just got more white space to create them. So yeah, I love that though. With that, more talking about education, whether it's, I guess maybe we could even focus more in on courses, but like, what would you say, whether it's a course or something else? I feel like courses are a good example because it is so like straight up teaching. What would you say are some big mistakes you see people make or things you see people do really well in making good course content? Maybe tell us some pet peeves.
I have so many.
I have so many too.
I'm trying so hard to like streamline in my brain okay, I'm just going to try to touch on a few that are really big.
Yeah.
Okay, pet peeves for sure. And this is going to ruffle feathers. And I don't know.
But you're so fun to talk about pet peeves with, I must say. When I was on your podcast, I feel like we had some good conversations about like things that are like annoying and like, it's like, yes, like, so I'm ready for this.
I love it. Yeah. I am always down to talk about an unpopular opinion for sure. Okay. So this is something I actually disagree with. I disagree with some of my best educator friends on, but I'm, I got to speak my truth about it. I do not believe, a huge pet peeve of mine, I do not believe in pre-selling a course before the course is created. That is something that a lot of people, especially in the past couple of years, as the work from home has really like escalated and everyone's like, oh, create a course. You can create a course on anything. And then you can just stay home and make $1 billion and you'll be fine. And that's great, whatever, in theory. But then all of these kind of predatory, I call them, that might be a harsh word, but I'm going to go with it. These like predatory educators for educators are telling prospective course creators, like, if you have an idea, sell the idea, like, don't even write anything down. Don't make a thing, make a sales page, sell it, and then live teach it, record it. And then that's your course. Can that work for some people? Absolutely. Like if you are an exception to the rule, and I believe that there's always an exception to the rule, that's great. Would I ever do that? Not in a million years. Like you could not pay me to do that. I do have a live component to my signature program, and I record it and I allow people to watch it back. But the core content has been tested. It has been reviewed. It was beta tested, then went through 3 rounds. It's been changed twice. I've kept up with it. Like, because my belief is that quality content is thorough and it's succinct and it's thought through and it's tried and true, because you're asking for people's hard-earned money in exchange for your knowledge that's delivered in a way that's going to be impactful and effective for those people. But if you're just like showing up and kind of leisurely walking through it, that's a pet peeve of mine, because then I feel like you're just kind of throwing things at the wall, seeing what sticks. And you're doing that with people's hard-earned money already. So that's probably my biggest pet peeve, is when people jump in before having like a concrete plan of how am I going to make sure that what I'm teaching is actually going to be effective for people.
Yeah. Yeah, which I agree with you. And if I'm understanding you correctly, which I think I am, you're not totally against beta launching. Would you say,
No,
or
I
you
love beta launching
is
fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's what I think we've talked about this before, but like I did a beta launch with Book.Designer where I hadn't made it yet though. So I was kind of doing partially what you're saying, but I do think like, gosh, it can go so many different ways. And I understand the predatory practices you're talking about of it being more like almost like, please pay me. And you're over here being afraid that like the course isn't going to work out. And the answer is kind of like, it will figure it out. The thing I liked with my own situation when I did it for Book.Designer was I was able to have the course students direct me in what to make, but it was all pre-recorded content that I made asking them questions as I went through each module. So different than what you're saying, but also,
too. Yeah. I think that's totally different. Like, I think that when we're talking about beta, that to me is different than like pre-selling a course.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you do beta with the intention of getting feedback and then making changes as needed. And you're just ensuring that you're putting the best product out there. I feel like when you're being taught to pre-sell, you're just going to like live teach it and let it go and just walk away with people's money, and they don't get, all the things after or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. And something, for listeners to think about that is probably not a good model for you as the creator to end up with the best product that translates well later when you want to sell it again, and also not great for the students. Yeah. What else would you say is like a mistake you see, or something that's like that people should do?
Let's see. I think people should work a little bit harder on not going overboard and over teaching, depending on what it is. But that's just something I really commonly see with my students is they'll have a topic, and the thing is, like, as experts, we know so much that we feel like we have to pack everything into a course. And sometimes that's fine if it's like a very large, high level course. But if it's something that's like smaller or more niche down, I really think that shorter is better. If you can teach something in 10 minutes, but you're taking 40 minutes to teach it, that's probably a you problem. Like, people, if they can get the same information in 10 minutes, you should try to deliver it in 10 minutes. And I think that's a mindset issue. Honestly, I don't really like to say that because I don't love like the whole like mindset is everything. But I really do think in this case, like, that is something that people just feel like, oh, well, I'm getting paid to do this, like I should give them 40 minutes. And it's like, well, if it's just the same information, do you really need to waste 30 minutes extra of their time? Probably not.
Yeah. And you're right. It can be so easy. I've talked about this before on my podcast, but it's like when you're creating a course or another kind of product, but especially with courses, you keep thinking of things to add. You're like, oh, I could talk about this. Oh, that might help them too. Or you're afraid of like not delivering enough. You're like, this costs this much money. I want it to be enough value. So you just keep adding. And that can be such a mistake because if it's stuff that's not relevant or just too much that it's overwhelming the person, then they're not actually even getting the wins from it. So I agree that like a product that's like, this is what you need, we're not putting in fluff, we're not taking longer, is a win.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else you can think of right now with like, for people wanting to add education to their business, specifically through something like what we're saying of like courses or memberships and things like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think one more thing that I would just encourage people to do is don't overthink it to the point of not actually taking action. I know that sounds really simple, but I think that after working with so many rounds of educators through my educator academy, but also I have a mastermind where I work with mostly educators. And the number one thing I feel is standing in their way is like the over thinking of the fact that like it has to be perfect, it has to be over professionalized, it has to be like 100% or I can't move forward. And I love the thought process. There's a balance though. Like you can have high ethics and high expectations and high standards, but also you have to start somewhere. So just kind of getting through that, like, where is that line for me? And how can I move forward, and not being afraid to take those first steps, whether it is something like a beta or something like taking some one-on-one calls around the topic that you want to create a course on, whatever it is that you want to do, just taking the steps and stop just being in your head about it, like put it into action.
Yeah, I love that advice. You're right. It can be so easy in product creation to get like just stuck. I love what you said about just now about taking calls with people around the course topic or starting to do like mentorship calls, even things like that. I know that's something you do and that you teach on. Can you talk more about that? Because that actually, I feel like for people listening who are like, oh, I want to start educating, that actually might be the better first step than like, I'm going to create a big course that's on my industry thing, instead to like mentor someone. So can you talk about that?
Yeah. So actually, inside my academy, the one thing the thing I kick off with is, hey, if you're here because you want to create a course, I'm going to tell you the place you need to start is one-on-one.
Yeah.
Whether you want to do one-on-one long-term or not, that's up to you. But if you can get somebody on a call and figure out what they're struggling with, if the one is having the problem or the issue or the holdup, then so are the many. And so you can't reach the many without knowing what the needs of the one are. And so I think getting people on a one-on-one, I think is just so pivotal for that. And I think that kind of a pitfall that people fall prey to is that in the beginning, you might be like, okay, yeah, one-on-one is great. And then you create your first course, you create your second course. Every time I create something new, I get a few people on a one-on-one call. That is just like, I think it's such a healthy practice to go through because again, you will never, like, you can't pay for that kind of feedback. Like Instagram polls and newsletter polls and surveys, nothing will come even as close to a deep dive with one person in the niche that you're trying to serve. So yeah, I love that idea. I think a one-on-one is amazing. And even if I am all about, as I've said before, I'm all about getting paid. But if you're just starting out, just telling people, can somebody spend 30 minutes talking to me on a call, like for free? Just give that time, because you're going to get more out of that time than you would if you were to get paid just like trying so hard to push a paid mentoring session. Like start gifting people your time, and in exchange, you're getting amazing insight.
Yeah. I was like literally just like praise to what you're saying. I'm like, yes, that's like, but really that's so true. And I had a few thoughts as you were talking, but like one with it is like, even like, let's say like someone's pushback to that might even be like, I know this though. I know what their problem is. I've been there. As someone who has made a course on like the thing I did, you forget when you're not a brand new beginner anymore, which you're not. If you're thinking about creating a course on this, you probably feel as though you're more of an expert, perhaps. You forget a lot of those initial problems. And I know for me with Book.Designer, I did exactly what you're talking about. If I'd been doing one-on-one coaching with designers, but also I literally on Instagram is how I did it. I did a poll. I said, or a question box thing. I said, if you're a designer and you'd be willing to give me 20 minutes to ask you some questions about your business, love to chat. And I had probably about 12 people I did one-on-one Zoom sessions with, where I just asked them questions about like what they were struggling with. And I tried to make it valuable for them too, of like offering them some help, but also like took notes, recorded it. And that was like my foundation for creating the course. And they brought up things that I was like thinking, oh, wait, like I didn't even think of that, because you can become removed from it even if you feel like you did a great job at it before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think of things all the time where I'm like, that's a problem for you. Like and then I remember, oh yeah, it was a problem for me too. But I just, at this point in life, it's like second nature to me. And so it is such a great way to like get back in touch with the time frame of the people who you're wanting to help.
Yeah. And with the idea of like mentoring specifically, like if you were to be like, I want to take on, or coaching, however you want to phrase it, but like if someone's like, I'm a copywriter and I want to start mentoring other copywriters, like what would you say their first step should be if they were like, I'm going to wait on the course idea, but I want to take some calls and maybe they want to be paid for it because they're not doing like course surveying. What would you say they should do like first and some steps there?
I think first off, one really good step that I would suggest is let's go with the copywriter example. Are you a copywriter who's going to help other copywriters with their craft, or are you going to help them with their business? Mm-hmm. And within that, you could even narrow it down more. But just one thing I find that coaches and mentors struggle with is if they are trying to get somebody to sign up to get coached by them, and they don't actually share like what transformation or what outcome that people can expect from working with them, but instead they just share like, do you need help with copywriting? Come work with me. And it's like, that's so broad. Like you want to be able to identify what it is that you're really good at helping people with, or what you're really good at on your own and what you've found a lot of success in your business. And then tell people like, hey, this is exactly what I can help you with. If you're a copywriter who struggles to X, Y, and Z, I can help you one-on-one. And these are the services that I offer. So that's one thing. Another thing off the top of my head that I feel like a lot of people wait on is having a home to kind of share everything that they are offering. Because if you grab somebody's attention, if you're a copywriter, you need help with X, Y, and Z, you can come work with me, see how to work with me here, and then have like an online home for them. Because otherwise they might reach out and then you're like, oh, I don't know. This is what I see a lot of my students struggle with, which is like, I don't know how much to charge for this. I don't know how much time to spend with this person. I don't know if this should be ongoing or an intensive or a VIP day. And so think that through before you start selling. And have somewhere to send people before you start selling. Otherwise, you're going to be like really overwhelmed when you actually get the inquiry, and then you're excited, but then you're like, oh gosh, I'm not prepared. Like, what am I charging for this? And like, what should this look like?
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you said knowing if you're wanting to teach like the business side or the craft side, because that is also two different skills. Some people might feel as though they can't teach the craft as well as because it's so natural to them, but they can teach the business side or vice versa. So I agree that's really smart. And knowing, like you said, a place to send them. With that concept of, like you said, mentioned VIP days, or is it ongoing, all that, what do you feel like is the smartest type of package to offer to start? Like, is it like once a week coaching? Is it Voxer support? Is it monthly? Like what, or VIP day, like you said, like, what do you think is a good place to start? I know it can vary with industry, but.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like that's a hard question because a lot of it comes down to not just industry, but the outcome that you're wanting to reach with whoever you're wanting to coach and how you're wanting to coach them. So I don't have like an exact formula for this, but basically to sum up what I would encourage people to do to figure out what is best for them. One is, like I said, once you get those people, if you're going back to what we had talked about with like offering some free one-on-ones or whatever, if you've done that and you know, like, okay, I want to teach these people about marketing strategy. And I know that a marketing strategy takes more than, a couple weeks to put into play, because you've got to test and you've got to look at those results and you've got to keep track of your data. And then you've got to see like what I need to tweak. And as the expert, like how long that takes to come to fruition. That's how I would base the frequency and the amount of time that you would offer people in mentoring sessions. For me, I have like a different, when people inquire to work with me one-on-one, which I don't really take one-on-one work very often anymore, but when I do have like an available time slot for that, I'm really clear about the fact that like, hey, if I have enough time, I'll say like, I have a 6-month coaching opportunity where we can create and launch your course in 6 months, because I know that I can do that in 6 months. But I couldn't necessarily say like, hey, let's come up with a whole new, I don't know, like if I was teaching a craft of something that I knew would take longer or less time, like I would base it off of the transformation, based off of the outcome that I knew the student needed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's smart. Of like, yeah, and that's so good too, to have the tangible outcome of like just now you said, I'll help you create your course in 6 months. Like, hey, that sounds great. I've never like knowing like what that is. It's like people, yeah, more likely to sell it better and have a happy coaching client because they're able to tangibly see, which that's gonna be something so hard about mentorship and coaching is like when you're just talking, it can even be like, where are we going with this? Did they get the value? Did they not? Yeah.
I remember when I first started and I booked a couple of mentoring sessions with people who I admired in the photography industry and then just in the creative industry. Cause from day one, I was like, I'm just going to feel around like savvy business owners. Let's see where they're at. Okay. And so I'd book like back then it was usually like a 1 hour, and it was just like honestly, it really spurred my inspiration to start my academy because they were just glorified coffee dates. They were just chats. And I was like, I'm not walking away with very much here. Like I'm walking away with some advice to like raise my prices, but like my sister could tell me that. Like I don't need, I need a more of an outcome, but also as the student, I didn't know what outcome I needed. And so that's something to think about as well. Like if you're going to offer coaching, you've got to be able to tell people based off of your needs, based off of what you shared with me, this is what I think would fit for you.
Yeah. That's so smart. Yeah, you're right. Glorified coffee dates it can happen. And that's so scary too, to like hope that as someone like doing that your version is not that. But those are helpful ways to make sure you're not, because that's what no one wants that. Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Let's like talk a bit about conferences and events and speaking at those. That's something a lot of people want to do, right? It's dreamy to like get up on a big stage and be in front of like industry peers and share about your stuff. I guess my first question is like, for someone who's like, I've never spoken at an event, but I want to, what should they do? What should their steps be?
Yeah, I think one is, okay, so tied for first, I guess. One, figure out what you want to speak on. Like, what are you passionate about? What's your topic or whatever? But in terms of getting started with actually speaking, like let's say you know your topic, you know what you want to talk about, start pitching yourself for podcasts, for virtual summits, because they're everywhere right now. And quite frankly, like I turn down a virtual summit a day at this point because typically they're unpaid. And I'm not at the point where I can take unpaid work. But if you were talking to me several years ago, trying to get on stages, I would jump at the opportunity to get practice. So any opportunity you can get to get practice, take it, whether it's paid or unpaid, because we can work you up to getting paid. In addition, don't just look, I guess this is kind of a matter of opinion, but if you really want to start speaking and being paid to speak, start looking at local organizations and pitching them to come speak in person, because creative industry in general, they don't pay very well. And you really have to be showing up willing to serve and hoping that maybe you'll walk away with some new clients and kind of get your investment back that way. But otherwise, like our sweet creative industry is not known for its high paying speaking gigs. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, with that, I am curious your thoughts, because you have a lot more insight in this. Like I've spoken at events as well, but like not as much as you, and not in the, like, I mean, this is your thing. Like with speaking, like how often are people paid for these kind of events? Like you said, our creative industry versus people not paid. And I kind of feel like I know the answer to this, but I want you to share it. But like at a conference, like probably a lot of people are paid and a lot aren't, like at the same conference. They're like, how is that breakdown usually? Like, what's some like insider thoughts you have on all that?
Yeah. So I'm a huge fan of transparency on this. And I have, like you said, I've tried a lot of different in-person events to speak at. It really differs conference to conference. Some conferences that are put on by corporations, by like companies that have a lot more basically money to put into their event, they can afford to pay their speakers, a decent amount, especially their keynotes, especially the people who are on the main stage. But a lot of times you'll see breakout speakers not get paid at all, or maybe just like their hotel room will be covered, or they'll be able to like secure sponsorships, and that's where they're finding their payment. And then on the flip side, you have the individuals who are hosting conferences. And I mean, think about yourself, right? If you're listening to this and you're like, okay, if I was putting on an event and I had to pay out of my bank account to have people come speak, would I have the money to do that? Or would I just hope that they would want to volunteer their time, And so it is like, it's a double-edged sword, because in our creative industry, like a lot of speakers are paying to go speak essentially, because they're paying for their flight, or they're paying for a rental car, or they're paying for a hotel room. And, they're not paying the organization, but they're losing money in the initial steps of going to speak to audiences. But then the good part is that the audiences then get to know them. They get to see the way that they teach, and they get to decide, like, is this somebody that maybe I want to invest in working with one-on-one as a coach? Or does this person have a program or a product that I could then purchase? And so you're gaining things from going to speak at creative events. And then of course, I kind of make this differentiator of, are you a business owner or an entrepreneur who also speaks, or are you a professional public speaker? Because professional public speakers, they usually are going to many, many different industries, many different events, and getting paid a lot of money to show up and just talk for 30 minutes or an hour and then leave. Whereas creative industry, you're going and you're investing 3 days at a conference, and you're mixing and mingling and having fun, but like you typically aren't going out of it with a big paycheck.
Yeah. And that's, so insightful too, for people listening to hear that breakdown. And with the concert, you're right. Like a lot of times you're so-called paying to speak because you are paying to be there, paying for flights. Maybe the conference fee is covered and you're going for free, but like you're still having to pay and work to be there. And that really is like sometimes fine and sometimes not, depending on what your outcome is. Like I know for me, I got to speak at the Business Boutique Conference put on by Ramsey Solutions a few years ago. And I got to go for free as a VIP to the conference and got a nice gift bag. So I did not pay for anything, but I was also not paid. But I also got to be in front of 3,000 people, got tons of sales from it, lots of new qualified leads and Instagram followers, like all of that. Like it was a big boost to my business, and like 1,000,000% worth it. Like, I don't even know that I would have thought to like have asked to have been paid. I feel like I would have felt silly having asked in that situation. And you're right though, like the public speaker, that's like, that is my thing. Where they're just, I know like one I think of is like Donald Miller has like become that. And he's paid like thousands upon thousands of dollars, probably is not invested in the rest of the conference, which is okay. He delivers an amazing keynote. People are obsessed, and he has brought that conference money because people want to hear him speak.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. And I think, again, all this that I've shared is really targeted toward like the up and coming speaker, or the speaker with maybe like 3 to 5 years experience. As you grow and as your expertise grows and as your demand grows, then you can ask for more money. And like, sometimes people will find that money for you, but sometimes they can't. So I definitely, there's so much variety, and there's just so much that goes into it. But at the end of the day, it's kind of just like, you have to formulate for yourself what's worth it and what's not.
Yeah. Yeah. And like with that, one more question on this topic. I want to talk about your conference next, but with someone who is wanting to stand out, and they're like, let's say they found a conference, they've done some things you said, which you gave great advice, like knowing your topic, doing podcasting first, speaking at these virtual summits, local things, but they are wanting to apply for maybe like a bigger event. What are some ways their application can like stand out and have a better shot at getting picked?
Oh, that's a great question. I taught on this for a long time, and I've had people apply to speak for my podcast, and I've had people apply to speak at my retreat. But now that I'm planning a conference, I was inundated by applications, and I realized like I was teaching the right things, and I'm glad I can double down on that. But I'm excited to share this insight because I guess people don't think about things in the same way that conference hosts do. And so hopefully this will help you. But number one, pitch appropriately in the appropriate setting. I know that there are many leaders out there who teach on pitching in the DMs and cold pitching in person and whatever, like pitch where you can, because the worst people can say is no. And that is true. But I don't agree that you should just pitch wherever you can. My DMs are not a place I enjoy being pitched.
Yeah.
It's literally the worst. And if you're listening to this and you follow me on Instagram and you've pitched me in the DMs, I don't hate you. We're not in a fight. Like, we're good. We're chill. You've probably gotten my answer, which was usually a link to the application that I've created. So if you are wanting to pitch an event, do your due diligence, do a little bit of research, see if they have a website, see if they have an application, see if they have a deadline, see if they have an email address, if they don't have any of those things, and go pitch in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. And then taking your application seriously. So I have had, I consider myself a pretty friendly person. I love to make friends in the industry. I feel like actually you're a prime example of this. Like, I feel like we became friends in the DMs. Like, I adore you. And I do that with people who I feel a connection with. I become friends with them. And the worst thing is when people feel that the friendly person they're pitching to means that they can just casually throw a bunch of stuff into an application and get the position because we've established a relationship. And that's just not the case. Like, I am pouring my blood, sweat, and tears into this event, and I want a speaker who puts work into the application and doesn't answer questions, haphazardly and just says like, doesn't check for typos and take it seriously, treat it like a job application, because at the end of the day, it is a job application. It's a temporary job, but you're showing up to do a job. So, and you're competing with a lot of other people more than likely, because a lot of people do want to become speakers. So even my teeny tiny brand new event that has never been hosted before, I got so many more applicants than I thought I would. People I've never heard of, people I know and love. That was really like a lot for me to sift through as a host. And it was very obvious who took it seriously and who didn't.
Yeah, those are great tips. And I agree, like treating it like a job application is like, adds a good level of seriousness to it, but it is like not something you should assume you're going to get just because you know someone or because you've attended the event or whatever that might be. But yeah, those are awesome tips. Let's talk about your conference.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
I'm so excited about it. It's the first like official conference I've hosted. I've hosted retreats for years and workshops, but this is specifically for creative educators. It's called the Creative Educator Conference in Dallas in January. And I'm thrilled about it. We have a great speaker lineup that's actually getting announced like the week we're recording this. I don't know when this is going to be put out into the world, but by then there'll be a speaker lineup announced. And I'm just really excited. It's going to be very different than I think your typical conference. Like I said, I attend a lot of conferences, and because I attend so many, I realized that there was just kind of a gap and a need that wasn't being fulfilled by a lot of these conferences. And that is kind of more hands-on work where you're not just sitting in a ballroom listening to motivational messages. I think that's important. And I think that there is definitely a place to be inspired and motivated. But I also really believe that if you're going to invest your time in something, you should walk away with some tangibles. And so that's what I'm really hoping to deliver at our event. And so I'm thrilled. I'm excited about it.
I'm excited to like look into it and all that. Yeah. And sounds amazing of like, hands-on stuff. And maybe we need to have you back on when you've done it. Cause it's like, I'm sure you'll have so much new learning stuff. Cause that is so different. Even like you say, you've done other types of things, but that's a big undertaking. So very impressed and excited for you in that. Yeah. Okay. I have a few rapid fire questions to close. And I want to tell everyone where they can connect with you. But I want to ask you the question from your show to share your unpopular opinion it can be about anything business. If I want to know your unpopular opinion, maybe about online education or the online business space, just something you want to share.
Oh gosh, I have so many and I feel like I've already shared some, but rapid fire answer, I would say probably in terms of the online education space, I think that it is neither true nor untrue that this space is so saturated that it can't work for you anymore. So many of my students have this fear that just because a lot more people have started selling education, it means that they can't. And that's just not true, because just like any industry, there are good things, there are great things, and then there are not so great things. And so all you can do is do the great work that you're able to do and show up and, just do the best you can. But I still think it's worth showing up.
Yeah, yes, the whole oversaturated concept that applies. People say that about things for so long. People say that about podcasting, have the whole time. Both of us have had podcasts like, hey, there's room for you. And people are probably always going to say it's oversaturated. Yeah, same with education, podcasting, all of it. I love that. Okay, you have a team in your business, as like I also do, and I'm sure you're having help with this conference, but for someone who is wanting to hire in their business or help with managing a team, I guess just like, what's your best like team tip?
I think my best team tip is figure out what you want help with before you start hiring, because you might find that the things that you need the most help with have nothing to do with your business. Maybe they're things in your home or things you can outsource, like, cleaning or groceries or whatever, because that is maybe where you're spending time that you don't have. Or maybe you think you want a VA, but you actually look at it and you think, oh, I actually need a content creator. So just really identifying where your pain points are and seeing what would help you if you took it off your plate.
Yeah, I love that. That's so smart before you hire, not to just assume what it is, but look at where you're spending your time. Okay, last one. You mentioned earlier in our recording how you have this year created a lot of white space for yourself in your business. I literally wrote white space. How did you do that? Star, star, star in my notes just now. But I would love to know, like, what does that look like for you? What do you mean by that? And like, I'm sure ears perked up when you said that, like mine did, of like, everyone wants to create more white space in their life and in their business. So what would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think initially, if I'm going to be really honest about it, about, I guess, a year and a half ago, we had some personal stuff come up in our lives where I was forced to create white space. Like I was forced to stop working for a little bit. And once I realized like the world didn't come to an end when I came back to work and things were still running and I was still having an income, I realized like, what is important in my life and where do I want to spend my time and what is worth it to me in order to make that happen. And so from there, I took a step back in a lot of ways and I stopped bringing in certain revenue streams as highly as I was before, but I was willing to take that temporary cut as I built up ways around it in order to be able to focus on things that were more important to me, which were, my health and my family and the wellness of our life together. And so I just think, like, if I could encourage anybody, it would be to really take a look, remove as much emotion, I think, as you can out of it to see what you're able to do, and then be okay with readjusting your goals and your expectations for your business. Like I will be very true. I used to say, I want to reach X amount of dollars in X amount of years. And I was so goal oriented and so driven that I was driving myself into the ground. And I had to sit back and say, like, no, what do I really want out of life? And when I was able to do that, I really just recalibrated. And I think that's why I'm able to say, like, no, I'm going to turn down this opportunity. And, I'm going to turn down these inquiries for clients that would pay me a lot of money because it's not worth it to me anymore. I would rather have this weekend free to spend with my niece and nephew or my husband or whatever.
Yeah. And what beautiful advice to end on. Like, seriously, that was so well said. And it is so important to make sure that we are building businesses that like fit the life we want versus someone else's random goal that we feel like we should also try to hit because it's what you do. And yeah, we both are people who have had our businesses a while, you longer than me with all of your, when you combine all your various business, which how long have you had all your businesses? Like when you go back to photography?
I'm coming up on 10 years.
Okay.
Which
Yeah.
is crazy.
Yeah.
I feel so old.
No, I always fold when I say how long I've had my
But
business.
I was
now,
also older. Like I was older when I started my business, even than other photographers who were like coming in fresh faced. I was already a high school teacher.
Yeah. Well, we haven't said this yet on recording, but it's your birthday today, which I can wish you happy birthday now in recording mode. But yeah, you're crushing your business, getting another year older and more beautiful, more wonderful. So yeah, but happy birthday again. But yeah, I love what you said. And the both of us having been in business longer now, it really is like always you're trying to get to the next goal every year. And at some point you kind of start to be like, do I actually want to make that much more money with this sacrifice? Or do I want to like you said, have more time to do other things in your life? And it is such an interesting question that you start to ask.
Yeah. My bookkeeper and I, we meet quarterly and she's amazing. But when we first started working together, I was like, here are my goals. Here's the amount I'm going to make every year. And then this last call, she was like, so are we good? And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to tread water for a while. We're fine. Like, it just changes and you have to be okay with that.
Yeah. And I think probably to hear people listening, it's probably helpful to hear that, like that it's okay to be like, I'm not trying to get to the next milestone. And creating a business that like works into making a life you love. I love that. Okay. Tell everyone where they can find you, listening to your podcast, all of that kind of stuff.
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Laylee_Emadi. I know it's a tricky name, but there's not a lot of us, so you can probably find me. And the podcast is called So Here's the Thing with Laylee Emadi. And the conference is, you can go to creativeeducatorconference.com and find out all about that there. So all my places.
Yes. And I will link to all that. You guys go listen to her podcast. I was on it. At the time you guys were here, I guess it was a few months ago now, maybe that I was on it, but really fun, really, really similar podcast. I feel like in the sense of like, if you enjoy this one, you probably would also enjoy Laylee's. So yeah, go check that out. Thank you for coming on, Laylee.
Thank you. It's always fun.
Yes. Hey friend, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with myself and Laylee. Thanks for listening all the way to the end. And if you loved the interview, please do leave a 5-star rating and review. It means the world to me and it helps people find the podcast. So Laylee's conference coming up, right? Like I said in the intro, I'm a speaker at that conference and I'm so thrilled for it. I cannot wait till January 17th to be there with all the attendees. I seriously love a good in-person event because the community element's so incredible. After, working from home and working as like a solopreneur, you make new friends. And then when you have a conference that's hands-on and really implementation focused, you grow really quickly too. So I want to tell you a little bit about the conference. It's called the Creative Educator Conference, and it's for up and coming creative educators who are ready to grow, and also for established educators who are dedicated to scaling and bettering their craft and honing their current offers and all of that kind of stuff. So attendees will get hands-on action-based education. It's not like just a sit down and listen type of conference. You're going to be able to chat with and get help directly from myself and other speakers. And if you look on the sales page for the conference, you can get a lot of info too as to like what all that looks like. There's some really cool stuff happening. So coaches, speakers, course creators, event hosts, podcasters, all of you guys, you are welcome here. This is made for you. It's in Dallas, Texas in January, like I said. So go to the show notes and get a link to get all the information. I hope to see you there. Let me know if you're coming, like send me a message on Instagram so I know to look out for you and say hi and make some times to chat. So that's it. Thanks again for listening. Bye guys. I'll be back next week with another episode.